Nah, gratitude, Sheikh. Gratitude for that. Appreciate
Gratitude.
appreciate that response. I'm gonna follow up the question with, once you kind of went out into the world as you were growing up with the information that was taught at home, and you went out in the world and you received kind of like a little bit of backlash in a sense, and how you view things from your perspective, and how did that affect you at any way about like how you related to other people and how they related to you?
Well, I'll say yes and no.
Okay.
In a way that it showed me that a lot of our, how can I say, own people, as far as melanated people, really, we don't study, and we
Mm,
deal with a lot of, how can I say, he say, she say. So a lot of things be told to us from from an uneducated perspective, and we get a lot of our teachings and things from TV. I saw that a lot in my makeup. I saw that a lot in my younger years, where, how I explained earlier that when I was in school, I used to get in trouble for speaking truth. And my parents always told me, whatever they taught me, if it was right, if I got in trouble at school, they would come and defend me, because what they taught me at home need to be heard. And so it always was a clash when they would tell you something at school that was right. And I knew it wasn't right because my parents taught me and actually showed me it. And so I was able to challenge certain things. When they say you a kid, you shouldn't challenge your
right.
elder, someone older than you. But if you're not speaking the truth and you were taught a certain way, you have every right to challenge it, no matter what age it was. So that was a conflict with my upbringing as well, through my walks of going to school as a young man, and even, going to churches. I always studied at home, and we always studied the Bible. So it was always was a clash with me, when I was young. And so, yes, that was part, how can I say, of a challenging thing in my younger years of learning a little bit and having a little bit, how can I say, advantage from a lot of my peers, because I had the privilege to have my mom and dad and to be homeschooled while I was on my journey as a young man. Absolutely.
Islam to that. And for far too many, right? Of course, the dynamics aren't the same, and we pick up things as we go along, and bad habits happen here and there. And from what I'm hearing from you, like knowledge, as we are on this journey to the knowledge itself, experience and series that we have, knowledge was really a focal point in your home. It wasn't okay, as I'm hearing, not to know. you know. So any way, shape, or form, you were going to be peeling back, looking deeper, trying to find out what was missing. You were being groomed for that kind of experience. So what would advice or what would you say, just kind of just segmenting it for a second, if that type of information isn't fed and maybe that type of direction, as the Bible said, train up a child, in a way that they go, so that when they get older, they might not veer off, but they might go in the direction that you would prepare them to go. But for those that don't have that kind of direction, what would you say now, looking back, for some children or somebody that may be watching this, that may be searching for those answers in their beginning to seek out knowledge?
Great question, brother. Well, I think it's imperative for brothers like myself and you to attach to the young men in the community. And maybe we might not have the type of funding that we may need to teach it at a young age, but do it regardless. Do it at the parks. Do it now. We have the internet. So reach out to those children, reach out to those elementary schools in our community, especially the so-called urban communities where the teachers look like us, and offer, how can I say, offer our services. Always talk to the children passing by. And for me, it's being seen. It's wearing my national headdress. It's telling the kids who I am. It's almost like not being hidden anymore, where a lot of people act like it's some secret or so-called a secret society, but be in the forefront for the young people that may not have the resources to see you, and go back in the communities. I know a lot of times we moved out of our community, which I have done, but now I'm making it my message and my mission to go back in the community that I grew up in, go back into those urban neighborhoods and offer my services, even go to the certain churches that's looking for this type of wisdom, and the schools and even different organizations, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and even, centers that have our little young men in lockup, and even the prisons, to go offer the services as young people so they can have knowledge of themselves, and then they can start making better decisions. So for me, as being an older statesman, it's imperative for someone like me, if I was a young man, to go back in that community and attach myself to where you see the need be. I wish I had that with my older brothers, and they only did what they can do. No disrespect to my brothers and everything, but as a young man, you don't want to listen to too much to your dad. You know what I mean? No disrespect, that's your dad. But wouldn't it have been great if your brothers, your older brothers, was into the knowledge, was into the science, and grooming you that way to where you and all your friends can be a part of it and it become popular? So for me, and for myself, as being a map and a guy and into knowledge of self, I want to make it popular for the young kids. So I'm going back in my community and try to touch those, no matter what happens, and have that part of my community service. So I think that's important right now for a young man that's looking for knowledge or that's seeking, is for us as older statesmen to attach ourselves to the communities that we came from.
Islam. I mean, because when I was coming up, you had different brothers in the neighborhood that, that was of a different ilk, and maybe pull you to the side and say something to you here and there, right? But I don't see that today. I'm just gonna keep it 100. I don't see that. So that means that I need to be that. Basically, is really what that is saying to me, and that's what you're saying to us. Is that don't look too far. Look in the mirror, because we have a part to play in the next generation's upbringing. So gratitude for that. So and I just wanted to take that side step because it was on me, and I was like, okay, somebody watching this going to be saying, well, what if I had that Sheikh? Some of the things that we need to do. So just look up to some of them elders in your community, that may be there, and if they not there, reach out to the BBT. That's what I could say.
Absolutely.
To that note. So Islam to that. So again, I want to kind of align ourselves here and talk to directly the knowledge of self. And I would like to say to the audience is that I've come across a lot of times in my journeys that if you ask somebody what's the knowledge of self, if you ask 10 people, you probably get 10 different answers, right? It's like, what's love? Kind of that analogy where everyone had their own kind of concept or makeup in their experience, what love is, what knowledge of self looks like to them, right? And for me, I could just give a little thing and just say, like, knowledge always was taught to me as knowledge being the key, right? The foundation, of everything in existence. And that was a building block that we must have to cross before we get to that next journey and that next step in life. But from your perspective, what is knowledge of self?
Good question, Noble. And a lot of times when I hear different people talk about knowledge of self, and I try to tell people words have synonyms, and just because we might say different words, we mean the same thing. So for me, knowledge of self is peace. That's the first thing for me. A knowledge of self is peace and a clear understanding of who I am and what I am and what I'm not. So for me, knowledge of self is peace and understanding who I am, who the Creator has created me to be. Everything else, once you accept that, then you can go a little bit further and investigate, because you will have a peace in mind to investigate the unknown. So for me, knowledge of self was first having peace, and then being able to investigate who I was created. What is my name per se? What the laws consist of. So the first thing for me, knowledge of self, was peace. And once I had peace, I was able to have a clear understanding and be willing to learn and be willing to investigate. So that's the example that I can give. The knowledge of self for me was peace, not something that, how can you say, oh, I'm mad or somebody lied to me, because nobody lied to nothing. We just wasn't into the know. So for me, you know, a knowledge of self was peace. Once you get peace, then you can accept everything that you're going to learn without no biasness.
Islam. And I can say to that too, I always looked at it like, you know, to know who you are on many different levels. But take an example in the layman's terms of when I say when we go to fill out a job application, first thing they ask you on that application is your name. So you need to know who you are if you're going to apply for anything. And that works in your regular life as well. So that way, you know, you have the confidence and the wherewithal to know that you have a certain level of lineage and legacy behind you that you can achieve great things. So that's
Absolutely.
definitely a key factor in there. So for you, Sheikh, now as you become, you know, a teenager, maybe you enter into high school, right? And you know, high school is high school, and we got things going on. You got girls, you know, you got the block, you know, you got sports, competition, you know, who's gonna survival of the fittest, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I would like, if you will, to share something about your neighborhood that you grew up in,
Absolutely.
and your transition as you become a teenager out in the world.
Absolutely. Noble, I would also like to add on to what you just said about knowledge of self when you're applying for a job and all that. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
times we might not know who we are. Our parents might not know. Our parents might still use misnomers of Negro, black, and colored, you know, and those
Mm-hmm.
things. So
Right.
when we don't know, I tell everyone, you can't get mad at your parent because they got us here. That's why we have to seek higher education and higher wisdom, no matter what type of education field it is, when you have those questions, because those
Mm-hmm.
questions can be answered. So that's where I said, first having peace of who you are and who your mother and father have raised you to be, and then go outside to seek those answers. But you can only get the answers if you know how to answer the right question, you know? So that's another thing as well. When we filling out things and they got black and they got European and all these other things pertaining to the SF 181 form, how you going to know what to fill out if you don't know what answers, I mean, what questions to ask and how to investigate those things? So that part, I agree 100% as well. Now, the question that you asked me about being in high school and being in all that, man, I was just like any other young man, you know, into sports, you know, into some of the things, especially I was into the girls. I thought I was Big Daddy Kane back then. I had the little high top and all that, you know, all those
Yeah,
things.
the deep cuts of your eyebrows too. I did.
Uh, I was under influence. You
My
know,
son
I
tried to.
was under influence of a lot of things I shouldn't have been into, especially in my neighborhood. You know, you know, I had a lot of what they call doughboys. A lot of young
Wow.
people at a young age was hustling. So
Right.
I got caught up in some of the wrong things at a young age, you know, and I shouldn't have been doing things. But like I said, I did. You know, I'm glad I got out of that, you know, with a little scrapes and scars. But I was brought up to be, you know, a student. All my elementary and middle school, I was an A student, high academia, soccer, baseball. I even went to Canusa for table tennis. But then as I got a little older, Noble Alonzo, I was attracted to certain things I shouldn't have been. And I let that attraction kind of take advantage in my high school years, to where all the years you were a scholar student, then you get to high school and you're not a scholar no more. You know,
Wow.
what's the difference? You know,
Mm.
what happened? Where's the breaks? I can go back in retrospect and see where my life was halted. I don't like to make excuses. Even when I met some of my older siblings, it was okay for me to hang around them and skip school and try to hustle and do all those things to try to fit in, which we all go through trying to find ourselves. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, I it was a challenge, you know, because I was always trying to prove myself. I was always trying to fit in. And so I had that dilemma like most all young men, you know, but luckily, luckily, from the grace of God, from the grace of Allah, I had my dad, I had my mom, I had a household of my mother and my father to kind of say, okay, to kind of allow me to make those mistakes. But then when I made those mistakes, they was there to teach me how to come out of that. So yeah, man, I can say my high school, you know, Noble Alonzo, it was learning. I learned so much all through my high school years because I wasn't the person that I should have been. You know, my upbringing that my father showed me, that my mother showed me, I slipped in high school. You know, I was recruited by the high school coach to play varsity basketball. I slipped by wanting to be one of the boys. And so it put a halt on a lot of things that I thought that I wanted to do, you know, that I knew I wanted to do, that my dad trained me to do. You know, a lot of my friends, I played high school basketball when Noble Alonzo went to the NBA. I was on that level. My friend Montaine Cleese went to the NBA. My friend Charlie Bell went to the NBA. My friend Morris Peterson went to the NBA. Eddie Robertson went to the NBA. They went to college. Antonio Smith. A lot of my friends went to the next level, and a lot went to college and went to pros. And that's how my dad was training me. And I slipped up. And so I have a lot of the same story as a lot of young men. But by the grace of God, man, and by the grace of my parents and the Holy Spirit, I was able to bounce back.
Indeed, indeed. Gratitude and your grace to Allah for that. I mean, you know, it's similar to what you said about your experience and trying to fit in, more or less, trying to not stand out when you become a teenager in high school in certain circles and you get pulled in, you know, to certain things, and it's your becoming, right? It's how, you know, now your training kicks in some ways, and for some, it's slow to kick in. It don't kick in for none for others. And it's like, okay, you find yourself picking up the pieces, right? And trying to figure it out. And do you have any recollection of when you may have had the aha moment to kind of like come back to yourself, or was there maybe a conversation that was given to you, and or an experience that may have, you know, kind of brought you back to where your purpose was leading you to?
Absolutely, Noble Alonzo. I always straddled the fence and said I can try to do this and all that, but it really happened for me at a later state in my life, at the age of 29, when my brother Akil Jelani Goodman Bey was took off this earth. It really shook me up. You know, it really questioned everything. And my baby brother was a scholar student, you know, exchange student and all that. So for me, when I lost my brother, it was life changing. I was like, something has to end. I said, I knew I'm brilliant. I knew I'm smart. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to do something and go to prison or do something and get killed because I'm mad and angry. So I sat down and I asked God, man, show me something. And what he showed me is to give my life totally to the Creator. And that's what I did. It took a while. It took 29. You know, even when I graduated high school, I went to community college. You know, I tried to play sports. I still had 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I went to other community colleges, had 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I was just straddling the fence, you know, maintaining, you know, working, you know, still thinking I'm a player. But my dad was always like, it's things better for you. I'm gonna let you experience this. And then when, like I said, when I lost my brother, everything had to change for me. The communication that I had with a lot of my childhood friends, I let it go. So many things I stopped. I gave myself totally to ministry. I stopped dealing with everyone and I gave my life to ministry. I said, I'm gonna learn something and I'm gonna thank God for everything, even the bad and the poor times. So for me, Noble Alonzo, it was losing my brother, you know, because I thought I was Superman. You know, I'm like, I can get out of anything. But when I lost my brother, reality really, it struck me, you know, and I was like, man, life is serious. And so for me, that aha moment, Noble Alonzo, was me losing my brother.
Islam and condolences again, you know, heartfelt condolences for that experience and the family and everyone. You know, and it appears like loss and grief, you know, is a challenge in this human experience, and I don't think it's by accident. Um, it's that way. It's like finding a way to get through, to knowing that you were once present, or someone that you really cared for were once present and now no longer physically present. And that leads me like into my next question is, how did your spirituality, how did what you were taught, and after you got over the anger and disappointment, how did that spark or rekindle your zeal for knowledge of self?
Wow, great question. Noble Alonzo, it was just, like I said, having peace, because I could have went anyway. I could have went all overboard, or I can go all the way to the right thing. It wasn't no in between for me.
Mm.
And so when I got so much peace, I got so much understanding by giving my spirit totally to the Creator. It rekindled the light in me. It showed me, say, hey, yeah, you talented in sports, but that's it. You have a brain. And so I knew I was smart. I went back to school. I started working out again. I started being honorable and honest to everything. A lot of the things that I did wrong, I made it right. And so for me, man, it was just a total submission. I know it might sound cliche. I've been through all spiritual houses like a lot of my brothers and sisters. I was a minister at churches. I grew up in IDMR, which is my makeup. But, most of us in a misnomer Black community, the most things that's in the community is the church. It's not that many. It's not that many temples. It's not that many spiritual schools. The majority of in the Black community is church. So I didn't want to stay away from the people that look like me, that I went to school with, and teachers and things like that. I implemented myself in it. And when I implemented myself in it, Alonzo, by studying and being able to contextualize my teachings and my ministry, I was able to teach in a fashion to make people, like I see what he's talking about. I see what he's talking about. Like, this is what the scriptures is for me. So, Noble Alonzo, for me, it was just a total submission. Like that, I just have to be honest. And it didn't have to do with no specific type of spirituality. The Holy Spirit said, just jump into it and I'll show you the way. I had to get out of God's way, Noble Alonzo,
That's it. You had to get out of his way.
Yes.
Get out of his way. And I want to, I can attest to that as well. We do a marvelous job with setting our own self up, walking right into failure. A lot of things that we think are failure is learning lessons. So it's like you take those hours, man, those are learning lessons. So, at this point, Sheikh, when you become a man, you per se in your eyes, and coming out of a certain phase of your life, coming over grief.
Go ahead, Noble.
Yeah,
I'm still here.
So basically, I was saying now, as you becoming an adult and more responsible, and you doing your everything you need to do to reach your next step and the next level where God is leading you, how did you find someone to kind of take this journey with you? What was that like? How did you meet a companion to do this life with?
That's so funny, Noble. Actually, man, that's an amazing question. I met my wife. I've been knowing my wife, but I got with my wife when I was in a dark place when my brother was, had passed, and I was in a dark place. My wife been with me all through my different walks of ministry, being an assistant pastor at 2 churches, going to college, figuring myself out. So my wife been right there with me. And she sat up there and told me she's going to always be there with me. And she said, I had a higher calling. My wife called all this out. She said, you have a higher calling. I'm going to be right there with you. So for me, it was simple, because I met my wife in a dark place. You know, I met my wife in a place where I needed help. Like I said, I was still going to college. My wife helped me get my bachelor's degree. My wife helped me get my master's degree by making me be committed. So for me, it was my wife. I have to be honest, to help me get past that journey, because yes, your mother and your father, once you get serious, they be your biggest supporters, which my mother and father is. But for me, it was my wife. It was that woman next to me that already had her own thing going on, to be like, I'm gonna go through this journey with you. And she sat right next to me and she held my hand. Late up at night, I'm studying, telling me, ministering to me, telling me that I'm this and I'm that and not to settle. And a lot of men don't have that mate that will minister to you and tell you that you are great. And once she started telling me that, I'm like, am I really? She like, yeah, you don't see that. You don't see who your mother and your father are. You don't see how people gravitate to you. You don't see how ministers and preachers and youth gravitate to you. I just didn't know it. And so for me, it was giving a part of myself to somebody else and letting them see the light in me and helping me, build myself up. So I tell every man, just like the Bible says, a man that finds a wife, you find a good thing. So for me, it was getting married. For me, that helped me get to the level that I am now, is getting married. It might not be for everyone, but for me and for the man I am today, absolutely my wife. Absolutely.
Islam. When we, by the grace of Allah, we'll have her on, and she could second all of that. She could second all of that journey. And I know that it sounds easy, it sounds like something like, yeah, one night I just woke up and we was connected. And I know it wasn't like that. And
Right.
when you talk about how you had to give somebody else a piece of yourself, I mean, listen, that right there is man.
Right. Yes, I agree.
We could just talk about giving somebody a piece of yourself, and giving away, and diminishing that ego, that you are in control, and that you do
Yes.
everything, and you do all things well.
Yes.
That of course is a false reality. A lot of us men walk around with and carry, this macho attitude, and not realizing that we don't tap into our feminine qualities, that we limiting ourselves. So
Yes.
you all masculine over here, huh? So you got the all the time. I said, well, wait a minute, because you missing it. We don't, that's not our makeup. So that's a powerful, powerful point, and I hope that everyone that heard that understand, coming from a sheik and a leader of men and women, that there is a point in time where you have to give up a part of yourself and serve, or in service to what your destiny is calling for. And we may not even see it. We may not even see it. Like, you were sent. Allah had someone right there in the bush, as they would say, to see those qualities in you and be able to put you in a place, like we read, and in the Moore Science Temple, you have the one-on-ones. We say, what's the closest place or the nearest place to meet Allah? And we say, in the heart, right? And we know what the
Yes.
scriptures, that that your wife is a help me. So we say that, the one that Allah sends for you will help you meet Allah in the heart. It will help you meet your higher self and the best example of yourself. So we thank you for that demonstration. That was absolutely marvelous. But what I want to say is that I want to probably close this first segment of it, because I want to get into your idea of forming the BBT and the transition and how that came about. And I know that's going to be a powerful piece, and
Yes.
where we come to, or where we are today. So, but for now, family, I want to send grace and peace to Sheikh Khary for giving us a moment of his illustrious time to just share some of his experience with us and his journey to acknowledge yourself. And this is just part one, and we will be back for part two. So stay tuned for that. We want to say peace and love. And we do all things in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. So we say peace and love, family.
And I want to thank you, brother, for taking time out your day, for opening this platform for questions and answers, for people can see this. You know, this is needed in our community. So I want to give you honors and I want to give you praises for taking time out your day, Noble, and creating something, because everything starts with a thought. And we always want to wait for the right time and a perfect time, but it's no perfect time. It's when God put it on your heart to do it. And we have all the tools and the technology. So I give you honors, Noble, for stepping up. This is going to be big as we get into the series, and we're going to do these different series. This is going to springboard to something amazing. So I just give you gratitude and love, Noble, for taking time out your day and interviewing little old me. I give you honors and gratitude.
Gratitude and love, Sheikh, until we speak again.
Yes, sir. Peace and love.
Peace.
Peace.